Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to one of the premier craft beer states, and I've reviewed quite a few beers from this state in fact, and it's somewhere that I really need to go and visit once again. So for this review we're going to return to the state of Colorado. We're going to Boulder, which is a very good craft beer city these days from what I understand, and we're having a taste of a beer from a brewery that you've seen me review a couple of things from before, but from what I understand this beer in particular is really quite special because it's just been retired. So for this one we are going to go to Avery Brewing Company, and we're having a taste of the Fimbulvvinter today, which comes in at 16.9% ABV. It's number 49 in their barrel aged series. It's aged in rum barrels, and apparently this beer is a Belgian style quintuple, so very curious to see how this one turns out. From what I gather, the flavour profile of this beer is somewhat akin to a Belgian quad. Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate of course all have this beer listed as being a Belgian style Quadrupel, which is a style that I really quite enjoy. I've never heard of a Belgian style quintuple before, but I'm very curious to see how this beer turns out, and knowing this brewery I'm sure it will be very good. I've tried their Maharaja double IPA before, and I'm sure I've had a wheat IPA from these guys as well that was also very nice, so curious to try a different style of beer from these guys. Like I said, from what I understand it has just been retired, so I might never get the chance to review this one again. A big thank you to my friend Matthias for sharing this beer with me, and also a big shout out to my friend Tabor, who lives in Boulder, which is a very good beer city. As I mentioned, I need to get out there and visit him at some point soon. But yeah, very much looking forward to trying this beer, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on it as well. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Avery Brewing Company before. No doubt I will add some more to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Avery Brewing Company. So Avery Brewing Company were founded back in 1993, and they're based in Boulder in Colorado, and the company was started by Adam Avery at the age of 27, and he was helped by his father Larry, who was actually just about to retire at the time. So Adam was a talented homebrewer. He'd won quite a few awards and things from what I understand, but his father was very keen to start up a small business, and this led to Adam persuading him that he should invest all of his retirement money in the new brewery. But initially this brewery was just a very small operation, and it remained like that for a good number of years actually. But in 2015 they opened up their new brewery, which is capable of producing 500,000 barrels of beer per year, and these guys apparently produced the first packaged IPA in Colorado back in 1996. And they've gone on to achieve a good number of interesting things since then as well. So they produced the largest batch ever of a 100% Brett beer for their 15th anniversary back in 2008, and they introduced their barrel aged series the following year in 2009. This beer is part of that series of course, and they've been canning their beers since 2010 as well. So they've got a lot of firsts, but from what I gather these guys were one of the later breweries to actually start canning their beers when you compare them to some of the other old boys like New Belgium and Oscar Blues actually too, who are another two very good Colorado craft breweries. I mean, Avery, Oscar Blues and New Belgium, those were probably the first three Colorado craft breweries that we actually got over here, and probably along with Ska Brewing as well actually, now that I think about it. Those are probably these guys are probably the big four Colorado craft breweries that we were able to get over here in Europe. But in 2017 these guys entered into a partnership with Mahu, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, San Miguel Group, which owns a 30% stake in the company, and they also own a share of a similar size in Founders Brewing Company as well. So these guys are in the same kind of group as Founders, which is kind of interesting. But technically this means that they are no longer a craft brewery, because the American standards are set that only 25% of a brewery can be owned by one of the conglomerates for it still to be classed as a craft brewery. But they've got a very good reputation. As I say, one of the regular Colorado craft breweries that we get over here in Sweden, and this beer came through one of the small partiers, I believe, on the 6th of September 2019 here in Sweden. So yeah, kind of cool, this one. And as I say, a brewery that have a very, very good reputation. I need to go out and visit Tabor in Boulder and have a look at the brewery tap room and things like that. They do have a tap room on site, and you can get food and things like that there, as well as trying some very, very rare beers like this. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Avery Brewing Company for the moment. Hopefully I can try some more of their beers in the near future. They appear fairly regularly over here, so I'm sure I will get that opportunity at some time soon. But to review something quite special like this is quite a nice occasion, so I really hope that this beer turns out to be quite special. So yeah, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and if you're interested in all the different beers that they produce, you can check out the website, of course, but the Untappd, Rate Beer and Beer Advocate pages have some very good information on those as well. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then and see how we get on. So as I mentioned earlier, this one is number 49 of their barrel age series. It's aged in rum barrels, and you can see it has some really kind of interesting artwork on it there. There you can see the back end of the rum barrel, but this one comes in at 16.9%, and they're describing it as a Belgian style quintuple. As I said, I've never heard of this beer style, but I understand that it's almost just like a very, very strong quadrupel. Of course you have the Singel, or the Patters beers as the Abbey guys used to call it, which from what I understand was a very light, sort of almost blonde beer type beer. You had the Dubel, which was a brown beer. The Tripel, which is quite a strong blonde beer, then the Quadrupel, which is an even stronger brown beer, and then the Quintupel is one that I've never seen produced from a Belgian brewery. But do let me know in the comments section below if there are any other beers that kind of fit into this quintuple style category. Actually, that would be very, very interesting. But yeah, really not sure what to make of this one, but very nicely presented. You can see on the top of this as well, there is the Avery Brewing Company symbol there, which is really nice. But without further ado, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. And I'm just really very curious to see how this beer turns out. You can see there's a nice little bit of smoke on the opening there, and we will get it out and into the glass. Oh, it's a little bit much, but as you can see, and as you would kind of expect when the beer is this high in alcohol, you're not getting much in the way of a head out of this one, but you can really smell the vanilla and the oaky notes as you open this beer up, and there is a little touch of sediment floating around in this one, but it's very, very fine kind of particles, to be honest with you, and that will dissolve away into the beer, or separate away into the beer as we drink it. But if I hold this beer up to the light, it's actually a very, very dark kind of it's sort of a mahogany, slightly coppery colour if you put the light through it. You can see there's very little head to this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of where the head should be on this one. Not really any head in this beer at all, to be honest with you. Maybe you would have got a very light kind of beigey foam out of this one. But overall, it looks, to be honest with you, this beer is nowhere near as dark as I thought it would be. I thought it would be a hell of a lot darker than this. You know, because usually quadrupels are actually quite a bit darker than this one. So that's kind of interesting. I do wonder if the barrel aging has affected this one a little bit, because as I was mentioning, I've mentioned this in a couple of videos now, when you barrel age a beer, it actually thins out the mouthfeel of the beer quite a bit. So it would kind of be interesting to see them try this beer without the barrel aging and see how it turns out, and it would be cool to do a comparison video of that. But if they retired it, I guess it's not a beer that you're going to see again, to be honest with you. But in terms of its colour, a nice rich sort of red chestnutty mahogany, maybe even slightly copperish colour if you put the light through it, but not overly surprising when you consider it's a very strong Belgian ale, this one. They'll either be quite light and blonde, but when they get to the very high alcohols, they do tend to be more brown in terms of their colour. So yeah, interesting, this one. But let's have a look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this beer. But yeah, straight away with this beer, a lot of brown sugar to this one. It's got that kind of sweet kind of caramel quality to it. It's a little bit of a toasty caramel, to be honest with you, but it's almost a little bit like a vanilla fudge as well, and you get some of that kind of lighter caramel wafer quality out of this beer. It's almost a little bit like a kind of rummy sugarcane, and when it's aged in rum barrels, that's not really surprising, to be honest with you. But the aroma in this beer, I'll say straight away, is absolutely beautiful. You're going to struggle to find beers that have got as kind of enticing an aroma as this. A little bit of vanilla in there, definitely, and again, that'll be one of the kind of subtleties you'll get out of the oak. But lovely, lovely woody quality to this one. You can really smell that nice smooth oaky quality just infused throughout the whole base of the beer, to be honest with you. It's got a nice kind of nutty quality to it as well, a little bit, I don't know if it's hazelnut or exactly what it is, but it's got a lovely nutty undertone to it, this beer. But yeah, lots of sweet brown sugars. It really is leaning towards that sweet end of the spectrum rather than having the kind of treacly molasses sort of things in there. But at the same time, you can smell that these sugars have been really turned into like a syrup kind of thing, but it really remains on the sweet side of the brown sugar spectrum, if you like. Very little in terms of hoppy character to this one. Maybe there's a little touch of grassiness and earthiness, but I mean, when it's barrel aged, you're going to lose a lot of those hop qualities just in the aging process. But there's a good bit of a kind of red fruity quality to this one as well. You've got a little bit of that kind of phenol note coming out of it too, so it's almost a little bit like a kind of cough syrup or something like this. But on the fruity side of things, I would say it's kind of like dates, prunes that are in there. It's got a little bit of an almost cakey quality to it, to be honest, as well. But it's definitely dates, prunes, a little bit of a juicy figgy quality, maybe some blackcurrants and blackberries in there as well, which is kind of things that you can always expect from this beer style. But I've always found that the quadrupels, they tend to lie a little bit more towards the red side of fruits rather than having some of the blackberries and blackcurrants in them. But the aroma of this beer is absolutely beautiful in terms of other strong Belgian brown ales, I guess we should call it, because it is a quintupel apparently rather than a quadrupel, but it comes across really nicely and definitely leaning towards the kind of sweet brown sugary end of the spectrum when it comes to the Belgian style strong ales with this one. So yeah, take a bit of time and just enjoy the aroma for yourself before you get stuck into this one, because it is really, really quite unique. So let's have a taste of this beer then and see how we go on. This one is the Fimbulvvinter. A Belgian style quintuple aged in rum barrels, coming in at 16.9% ABV from Avery Brewing Company in Boulder in Colorado over in America. One of the small partiers that we got through Systembolaget here in Sweden in September 2019. Let's get stuck in. This is 2017 bottled beer, by the way. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Right, this beer is an absolute monster. I don't think I've ever come across a beer that is quite as heavy and oily as that before. That's ridiculous, it really is. And it's a very good beer, don't get me wrong on that. It's a beautiful beer, but the heaviness of this beer is absolutely mental. This is crazy. But it's very, very good. Yeah, massive thumbs up from me, this one. I can't remember if I mentioned it at the start of the video, but the Belgian Quadrupel it's a style of beer that I really enjoy. I mean, when it comes down to it, I'm a huge fan of the big malty beers, you know, the Scotch ales, because I'm Scottish, of course. I love my big 80, 90 shilling beers. I love those. The German Doppelbox I really enjoy as well. Belgian Quadrupels. I actually like Bier de Gar as well, but I don't really get the chance to review many of those. So when you come across something like this, these big brown sugary beers are just awesome. Absolutely awesome. And this one is pretty damn unique, I have to say. It's really good. And I would be really curious to see how this would turn out without the barrel aging, because even as it stands with the barrel aging, it's supposed to have a bit of a thinner mouthfeel after it's been barrel aged. This beer is ridiculously thick. But anyway, so what you'll feel straight away with this beer, if we talk about the flavour, across the middle of your palate, you really can feel that nice, smooth, oaky quality there. And the further that you go into the aftertaste, if you move further forward on the palate, you're going to start to get these nice kind of vanilla notes out of there. But the woody notes that the beer has, it's almost really like they're infused with that kind of brown sugar cane. It's the rummy quality. Rum is, of course, distilled. It's sugar cane, basically, that rum is based on. So you can really get that whole quality just founding, or just forming the linchpin of the beer, I guess you could say. It's really beautiful, that, and there's quite a few other things kind of happening on top of that, but they fade away after a little while, I think, with this beer. But yeah, in the very centre of your palate, that's where you're going to really start to notice the diversity of the brown sugars in here. I mean, you can definitely pick out, there is a little bit of that almost in the very centre of the tongue. You're almost going to get a little bit of that darker, treacly molasses kind of brown sugar out of this beer. And that's just because of the sheer booziness that you get. When it comes to alcohol flavours, they always come out as this sort of caramelly, treacly molasses kind of thing, and you're getting that straight away in the middle of the palate. You'll pick those very, very dark brown sugars in the middle of your palate, and it's 16.9%. It's not surprising that they come out like that. But as you move gradually out from the centre of your palate, you're going to feel them just fade away a little bit, and they gradually get sweeter and sweeter, and then it's almost like there's a bit of a biscuity quality. Or cookies, as the Americans, I guess, would call them. You've almost got this biscuity cookie kind of quality sitting on top of the rest of your palate there. And that's really, really interesting. As I said earlier, further forward on the palate, you'll get more of these kind of vanilla flavours. This beer really isn't spicy or anything like that. It's a lot more kind of, how would you say, it's a lot more kind of smooth and vanilla-y and woody. It's really nice, actually. It's almost, if you think about this one, I would guess that the rum barrels that they've used for this have been aged with, you know, maybe 7-year-old rum, 6 or 7-year-old rum, maybe even 9-year-old rum, because the 3-year-old rum, I think, tends to be the white rum, and then when you start to get to 6 years, it starts to turn brown, and then beyond that is when you really get the dark rum. So I think it's dark rum barrels that they've used for this one. It's just at that point where it's starting to turn dark, because it's not quite as thick and brown sugary as it might be. It still has a little bit of the kind of lighter qualities that you'd expect of an almost white rum. It's really interesting to think about that. I'd be very curious to know what kind of rum it is that they've had in the barrels before they've aged it, because that really can affect the flavour that you get out of the beer in here. Even the distillery that they've had these barrels from would be interesting, because again, it's different sugar canes and stuff like that, so you infuse the wood with different flavours. But it really comes across, it's very thick, very syrupy, this beer, but it's beautiful, this one. It's not quite as thick as you're going to get, for example, from or I guess thick isn't the right word, it's not quite as complex as you're going to get from like the Westvleteren 12 or the Rochefort 12 and things like that. It's more, this beer, it reminds me actually of some of the old ales that I've had. Is it Old Curmudgeon, actually? If you like Old Curmudgeon from Founders Brewing Company, this is a beer I think you are going to enjoy as well. It reminds me quite a lot of that. This beer is a little bit like an old ale, to be honest with you, one of these big American old ales. It's kind of like that. And in fairness, one of the sort of downfalls to making that argument about this beer would be that it does have, the old ales I think are a little bit more bready than this. This one really does lean towards the brown sugars. There's not really that bready quality that you might expect of one of these American takes on the old English old ales, if you like. That's probably the downfall to that argument. But I mean, regardless, you can argue about styles all day. The main point to take away is that this beer is really beautiful. But share this with your friends. I mean, this beer is just absolutely insane. But yeah, let's finish off on the flavour then. So if you move forward on the palate, as I said earlier, you get this nice vanilla quality, but there's an almost kind of cakiness to this beer, as I was mentioning. You really will get some cakey notes on this beer before you move into the fruity side of things. But in back corners of the palate, tiny little bit of earthiness there comes out. That smooths out as you come further forward along the sides of the palate. Maybe a tiny little bit of a herbal quality too, but on the front corners of the tongue, you've got a nice floral aromaticity. Round the very front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and then behind the front curve of the tongue, you've got that nice oily bubble where you get those fruity, juicy esters out of the beer. The hoppy notes that I've just talked about, they're not very prominent, to be honest, but when it's a rum barrel-aged beer and a barrel-aged beer of any description, you're not going to have too much in the way of hoppy qualities. But the fruitiness in this beer really does have quite a bit of diversity to it. So yeah, like I said earlier, good little bit of a kind of cakey quality to the beer, but it does lean towards that phenolic cough medicine type thing. So a good bit of a datey kind of quality for me. I'm not sure if it's quite prunes, but dates definitely. It's got a lot of sultana almost quality to it, a little bit of a, so it's a mix between sultanas and raisins. It really has a dried kind of grape quality to it in there too. But the further you go into the aftertaste and the further you come forward on the tongue, you're going to find that it moves more into a juicy, how would you say, it's more like a juicy kind of figgy quality, and it really leans towards the red fruit side of things. I've said in a couple of these beer reviews, when it comes to quads and stuff like this, you will get a little bit of like a blackberry, blackcurranty type thing, and in fairness, right on the tip of the tongue, you do get a little bit of that, but I really feel that this beer leans more towards the kind of sultana, raisiny type qualities, and the raisins aren't sharp. Sometimes raisins can come across as quite sharp. This beer is definitely more juicy and oily in its fruity flavours, but you really get a little bit of that figgy quality coming out in the aftertaste, and a little bit of the blackcurranty kind of notes as well. But it's a beautiful beer, this one, and you know, one that you really need to check out. There's a whole host of flavours going on in here. I think this beer, if you didn't barrel age it, it'd be interesting to really try non-barrel aged versus barrel aged in this one. But even at barrel aged, the thickness of this beer is just absolutely insane. So just be aware of that if you try this one. But it's a beautiful beer, make no doubt about that. If you like your big Belgian quadrupels and you like the old ales such as Old Curmudgeon, as I mentioned earlier, from Founders Brewing Company, I think this is one that you are really going to enjoy. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I think it's fair to describe this beer as being quite full-bodied. I don't think there's any doubt about that, to be honest. Carbonation is very smooth in this one. Again, no doubt about that. Massive oily mouthfeel. The malt base really dominates this one. There's no doubt about that. The barrel aging, I think, obviously thins out the mouthfeel a little bit. You can feel that in the centre of your palate. Very little bitterness to this beer. I think you'd be lucky to get 10 IBUs out of this one. But a lovely big brown sugary sweetness, and also a nice juicy fruity quality to the beer as well. But overall, just an insane beer, this one. I don't think you're going to come across many beers that this one is comparable to. The one that really springs to mind for me is Old Curmudgeon. Those of you watching in America, no doubt, will have more examples in your armoury that you can refer to with this beer, but for me it really reminds me of that. But a beautiful beer, this one, and if you do get the chance to try this, I would highly recommend that. A very quirky beer, and one that you definitely just need to try for yourself. I think this review is a bit inadequate to express kind of what this beer is like exactly, but I hope you've enjoyed my take on it nonetheless. So let's leave it at that then for this one. This one is the Fumbilvvinter, a Belgian style quintuple from Avery Brewing Company in Boulder in Colorado. A crazy beer, this one. Very cool to find this in the small partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden. A big thank you to Matthias for sharing this beer with me. I'm going to go and taste it with him now. But thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Avery Brewing Company as well. I'm sure I'll return to these guys in the near future, but if you get the chance to try this one, definitely have a go at it. If you're a fan of English old ales, or the American takes on the English old ales, then you will enjoy this. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. Until the next time, slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers.